mo ti ń sìn yín bọ̀ ọjọ́ ti pẹ́ ẹgbẹ́ kìíní wá èmi ló kàn.
Remember that tragicomically entertaining series in the last 15 days since calls for the August 1st hunger protest gained traction? Tinubu's team, gripped by the fear of Nigerians wielding the monster that they abusively used to ascend to power, orchestrated probably the most dramatic responses to the anti-government protests in Nigeria's history. If you observed keenly, you might remember that those moves followed a pattern that were served in stages. Let's get right into the 15 of them. 1. The House of Reps panic salary cut. The first notable response to the protest was a panic-triggered plenary session by the House of Representatives. But Nigerians saw through this, dismissing it as an empty gesture. During the session, they realized that the hunger is a teeming time bomb. So they pledged to take a 6-month salary cut as a sacrifice due to the economic hardship that they aided Tinubu to heap on Nigerians. So they begged for the protest to be halted. But of course, no one cares about them taking a salary cut. Their allowances are already a killer. 2. APC attack dogs were unleashed. When it became clear that the sly attempt by the House of Reps to stop the planned protest was dead on arrival, Tinubu's government unleashed their attack dogs on X and other platforms to kickstart a counter-trend with #NoToProtest. Their team lead would be Mr. Bayo. In no time, they flooded the streets and social media timelines with their rabid chants to cause confusion and distract everyone. 3. Emergency meeting with first-class kings. So Tinubu moved on to traditional rulers and charged them to start talking to their people. When the traditional rulers were reluctant to act, the old man in Aso Rock had summoned them to an all-expense-paid emergency meeting in his Aso villa. No one can tell how handsomely the chiefs were rewarded, but with how desperate and eagerly they released the statements warning against the protests, especially Oni of Ife, Sultan of Sokoto, and Oba of Benin, one can't doubt that their pockets were possibly blessed beyond measure by the Oga in Aso Rock. 4. Khan, Murik, and other religious institutions bowed to Aso Rock. Just as the Navish traditional rulers were signing out of Aso Rock, the confused religious institutions were taking a bow to the Aso Rock Principality Lord. Suddenly, Khan became an advocate of the government and started begging Nigerians to give the Tinubu government more time. Murik, in their annoying primitive manner, dished warnings and threats, but who that one help? 5. Panic scare by security agencies. At this stage, it was already too late, as the coconut head generation were not interested in whatever pro-government PR that the first-class chiefs and unstable religious bodies were doing for the Aso Rock Lord. So Aso Rock activated and unleashed security officers to flood traditional media and inject panic scare, propaganda, going as low as threatening civilians not to protest. While the DSS were warning organizers of the protest, identifying and arresting them, the police were shouting on top of their cracky voices and asking the organizers to identify themselves. From their end, the military said that they'd march out of their slummy barracks to intervene in the protest, suggesting a repeat of the evil that they unleashed during the #EndSARS. 6. Governors weighed in. Since the federal interventions were seemingly exhausted, it was time to spread the anti-protest campaign to the states. Not surprising to see the pot-bellied state replicas of the Aso Rock Lord start running helter-skelter to dampen the raging echo of protest in their respective states. For instance, the fat-mouthed Hope Uzodinma compelled the other Southeast governors to a meeting. 2 days after, he unleashed Ebubagu to scare Imolites from coming out. Sanwo-Olu, as well as other governors, also had press briefings. Not that Nigerians were surprised, aside from Alex Oti falling everyone's hands. 7. Dazed NANS Leaders Incorporated. Perhaps the share of the circulating largesse dropped in the shallow pockets of the so-called NANS leaders a bit late, or they were simply delayed to be unleashed in due time. They crawled out to add volume to the anti-protest noise, but theirs also was watery, irrelevant, and undeserving attention from Nigerians, whose anger is running up as the events unfolded. 8. Wike Tinubu's daughter recruited for town crying. Wike landed accidental second appointment, this time as the FCT official town crier for anti-protest campaign. Of course, he hardly disappoints in such duties. Already, he's a natural loose mouth, a noisy speaker whose shout echoes far beyond the reach of his thinking scope. So it's unusual that he's able to hop on the new job swiftly and happily. He took to the marketplaces in Abuja to town cry against the protest. Folashade Tinubu Ojo, on the other hand, was in Lagos delivering on the town crying job for her papa. Fair to her, she was able to grab the ears of the very gullible few. 9. The usual. Rice for 40k. Minimum wage signed. Other policies desperately effected. In a bid to deceive the most gullible amongst Nigerians, Tinubu and his surrogates embarked on a rat race, dishing out Greek gifts. The intent was clear: to assuage the flaring tempers of Nigerians and divide them. So we can have a situation where the mumu ones will say, "Why una dey protest? Shebi government don dey do something." All of a sudden, Aso Rock wanted to sell rice for 40k. Tinubu signed the minimum wage, stopped import taxes, and begged for dialogue. But as they say, when you eat with the devil, you use a long spoon. Who would trust the Greek gifts of a Tinubu government? Not certainly these pained Nigerians. 10. Paid urchins hold pro-government protests. Some hungry and dumb Nigerians were bought like condemned goods and dumped at Eagle Square, Abuja, Lagos, and Uyo to hold placards that they had no idea what was written on them in a government protest. The locations where these hungry protesters were parked to already tells who are in charge: Abuja, Wike; Uyo, Akpabio; Lagos, Jagaban stooge. But this tactic isn't new to Nigerians, so everyone just angrily laughed at the tragic comedy and moved on to more important issues, especially after the hired protesters started crying over non-payment of the peanuts the Tinubu government promised them. The hot breakfast was served to them instantly, and it's already burning their mouths. 11. Asari Dokubo, Sunday Igboho bark for attention. At this time, Jagaban and his team of racketeers in Aso Rock were edging to their last resort, which is characteristics of them anyways, which is violence. They had to unleash their barking dogs to beat the gong and draw attention to the next move. And both gangsters delivered exactly as they are paid. A press conference was arranged for Asari Dokubo. The gibberish that oozed from his mouth wasn't any different from what an unstable rabble-rouser vomits. 12. Bigoted gangsters recruited for market invasion. Thugs in Lagos were gathered with probably a promise of an urgent 2k to them, and they marched into major markets, especially dominated by Igbos and other non-indigenes, to increase the volume of the drum of violence that Asari Dokubo and Sunday Igboho started beating. But those ones actually did not have stamina. Everyone knows that hungry people don't have the strength to fight for long, and these ones indeed looked very hungry. 13. Hungry chiefs out for Oro Festival. The scare and desist card that they played in March 2023 Lagos State governorship election was reintroduced. White-clothed bad chiefs marched to the streets to announce they'd kickstart the Oro Festival to coincide with the dates of the protest from August 1st. Rather than get angry at them, Nigerians pitied them because the sweat that profusely soaked their white clothes wasn't worth the paltry beggarly money that they are paid. Others are angry that the so-called chiefs are used as discardable tools to desecrate a profound Yoruba culture, the Oro Festival. 14. Traditionalists in Ikorodu leave their shrines. Since traditional chiefs and religious bodies had failed to quell the rage in their members and followers alike, Aso Rock thought maybe it's time to drag traditionalists out of their shrines. At least they have to be useful for something. So it's not surprising that 2 days into the protest, Nigerians saw them marching on the streets of Ikorodu, chanting "No protest in Lagos." Well, that too added a very comic episode in the tragic comedy series of the anti-protest protests. 15. Bomb scare and the Agent Fashola script. Only a day before the protest would begin, and there's suddenly a bomb detonated somewhere in Lagos. Interestingly, only the police knew the location, saw the bomb, and defused the bomb. No one else saw it. Nigerians can smell and tell a Bollywood script from the soundtrack, and we had seen this particular one before, the Agent Fashola drama of 2020. Predictably, the so-called bomb scare was followed by a warning to Lagosians to remain indoors and not come out to protest. You're laughing too, right? Anyways, give it to Tinubu. He's given arguably the most strategic but infamous chain of responses to anti-government protests in Nigeria's history. He may as well earn the title the Wizard of Modern Nigerian Politics. This explains how the low-budget Aso Rock version of Vladimir Putin appeared to have clipped the balls of Nigerians with his aging but potent claws, and we seem not to be escaping it.